programme was seeing the way that theatre organisations outside of this country operate. And they tend to operate in a kind of production hub model. An organisation will exist that supports artists in creating the work they want to create. It will provide accommodation, working space and a salary for artists who want to work together and collaborate together. We just don't have that way of working in this country. We tend to work more on a production by production basis. So artists might be employed for 4 or 6 weeks to work on a particular project, and it can be quite intense, very much geared towards the opening night. So it creates an awful lot of pressure in a very small time scale. Everything just has to happen for the opening night. And that's great in itself and is a wonderful, exciting, forceful way of working and forceful way of generating new work sometimes. But I think there's a hugely valid argument for having essentially research and development time as well, so that new ideas can bubble to the surface rather than being forced through a jet stream, if that makes sense. Moving in here into Castletown House and seeing the space available and seeing the potential inspiration that a space like this can provide made us really want to bring other artists in and allow them the freedom and the time to work here. Most collaborative of art forms, because there are so many different artists that have to work together in this very confined time constraint. The idea of widening out the net in terms of the kind of people that we thought might be interesting to bring together was really important in terms of putting together the space programme. What was really key, I think, was just putting together a team of mid and early career practitioners from across a very broad spectrum.
I'm a set designer.
I'm a choreographer.
Light designer.
A visual artist.
A vocalist. An architect.
Director and a dramaturg.
Visual arts.
I think it was an excellent group of people that we put together.
Really appealed to me from the very beginning, even when I first read about the space programme, is the fact that it was open to anybody, basically, any sort of art form, any artist, from software engineers to sculptors, and the conversations you can imagine happening between those two people are something that I was really kind of like, yeah, that'd be really, really cool.
Just yesterday I had this great moment with Ciaran, who's our lighting designer, who's here, and we found that we had an incredibly similar, very, very similar vocabulary, but basically how he would approach light would be very similar to the principles with which he would approach sound. So we found a really interesting common ground there and a point from which we can work from. So I hope that there's other opportunities to explore with other people as well, and similar paths and little connections that can be made.
I was really intrigued as to how my work would correlate with an architect's or with the singers, and what could happen out of this stew of people and ideas, what it would taste like.
From within their field and put them on the table.
I wouldn't say it's so much a problem as to what background you come from. I mean, although there are elements in various disciplines that would overlap slightly or be very similar, it's more to do with the individuals finding common ground in their ideas.
We can find common points between our views, and our views are very different, because we have very different background and very different cultural influence on our art.
We've really been looking at how each other work as well as what we do, and that how and discovering each other's processes has just really opened my eyes up to a whole range of possibilities for future projects.
Things that the individuals wouldn't necessarily think of by themselves, but when they're given the time and space to work with other people from different backgrounds, I think exciting things can really happen that none of the participants would have conceived of at the beginning of the process.
It's finding someone who's equally as passionate as you are about your one art form and bouncing ideas backwards and forwards, and that's incredibly exciting.
Having time to explore something that hasn't got a deadline, that hasn't got a finished piece of work that we have to produce by a deadline and within budget, and having a space with different people who've all got different agendas and different ways of working, rebooting the system.
Each of us within our own disciplines to really think about what we do and think about our audience and the structures that we work within, and maybe they don't have to be so fixed as we keep them.
If I was paired with somebody tomorrow to do a project, anybody on the programme, I think it would be really exciting and fruitful no matter what.
Of course, when you're putting together things like this, you have great aims and hopes and ambitions, and you're never quite sure if they'll come to fruition, and I think the Space Programme in 2008 really surpassed any expectations that we had for it.
Art needs time and space, and making long ways around in order to get somewhere you may not know yet, or creating frameworks where mistakes can be made so that we can discover what that art form will be the day after tomorrow.
Despite the fact that we're a theatre company, because we do a lot of site-specific work with different technologies, different media, we're not a conventional theatre company in many ways, so it's our lifeblood. We need to work with other artists from other disciplines, and we need to be inspired by them and their work. Moving on, we really have a desire to have another 2-week session next year, but to also have a once-a-month event running for a whole year, so where we bring another group of artists in and essentially work with them over the course of a whole year and just see what kind of connections can be made in those short, intense bursts. It would be fantastic if we were able to provide this facility on an ongoing basis. We'd love to be able to have artists here all the time, connecting with the company and improving the work that we do as well into the future.